Hello, everyone. In this self-led interview series, I have been exploring a simple but powerful question, and that is how well do we really know ourselves as we build meaningful and successful lives, and what does it cost us when we don't? I think so often we see the success, the outer success, and we have no idea what it took for people to get there. So, in the conversations that we've had so far, we've explored reinvention, intuition, self trust, and the courage it takes to return to ourselves. Now, today's conversation touches on something many entrepreneurs experience but don't always talk about, and that is the signals that can tell us something in our work or our life needs to change. So today I am joined by the wonderful Nedra Rezinas, a business strategist and a coach who helps introverted, empathy-driven entrepreneurs build businesses that truly reflect who they are. And Nedra brings more than 20 years of experience as a business owner and mentor, helping solopreneurs design businesses that align with their values, their strengths, and their energy. What I appreciate most about Nedra's work is how deeply it's shaped by her own journey, from running a busy web design business that left her exhausted and overwhelmed to rethinking what success really means and building a more sustainable, supportive way of working. So I'm really looking forward to exploring that journey with Nedra today. Nedra, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today and have this conversation.
Well, thanks, Linda. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you. So let's start by sort of looking back. When you look back at the years running your web design business, what did success look like from the outside? So somebody looking at you with your web design business, what do you think that looked like?
Well, I think there's a lot of pressure, and I think some of it was in my own head, but it was this pressure to know everything and to have it all figured out. And this is an industry where things change very rapidly, and you're supposed to have it all dialed in and understand the latest security and the latest this and that. And I think that was something that I really didn't understand. At some point I'm like, you know what, I'm not that passionate about this. This is not, but it's one of those things that I started doing in younger years and was just like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm just going to keep doing this. And it was just such a repetitive motion. And, there were signs from other people going, why are you still doing this? This is not your zone of genius, or this is not your skill set. And I'm like, but this is what I know. And so I think I just got stuck in this whole loop of well, this is what I know. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'll keep doing it, but not always doing it in a way that was sustainable, or for me especially, but it was just exhausting a lot of the time.
Yeah. And so you were stuck in that loop of, I think that many of us are familiar with, of this is what I know, so this is what I have to do. I have a mantra now that says, just because I can do it doesn't mean I should do it. It's not, that's not necessarily the thing that is right for me. So as you had that feeling of, okay, this is what I know, but it feels overwhelming and I'm exhausted. What did you feel about that? Did you feel it was impossible to change that? Was there a frustration that you didn't know, well, if this isn't what I want to do, what on earth can I do? What was that feeling like?
Yeah, it was really scary because, change is always so hard, but I think it just started with taking assessments, taking even just I went to a career coach and started taking assessments just to see where my strengths lie, and I think it was Strengths Finder and a couple other ones, and it kept pointing to teacher, coach, mentor, facilitator, and I'm just like, I just was felt so defeated because I'm like, I have no degree in teaching. How am I ever gonna do that? Like that I just felt like the book just slammed shut. And I was like, what, yeah, that sounds great, but how's that ever gonna happen?
Mm. Wow. Now, as part of that, when you were doing your web design, you were working extremely long hours. What kept you pushing through that at that pace? What kept you doing that?
I just kept thinking it was going to get easier or there was going to be some reward at the end. Or, I don't know. I just, because I saw other people having success. I'm like, well, that must be what I need. That must be what I'm supposed to do. And, I was surrounded by other very successful web designers and I just was not finding that at all. But I also was holding on tightly to everything and not willing to let go and hire people to help me do things either. There was like a breaking point where I'm like, oh, this could be done differently. And yes, it's terrifying to do it differently, but yeah, you need to reconsider your options here.
Right. So you just thought if I work harder and I work longer, then that success will come that I see other people achieving.
Yeah.
So the panic attacks really then, in 2006, I think you said you began
Yeah.
experiencing panic attacks. What do you remember most about that period of your life?
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah, it was almost 20 years ago. I was so scared all the time. I was just like, I couldn't enjoy life. I was just so miserable. But, it was because I was overworking myself and isolating. I didn't know what was happening. I was just kind of in survival mode. And, like even just my social life was not doing so great. It was just everything was kind of crumbling and falling apart. It was like there was no stable ground.
Mm. And did you see that at the time as a signal that something needed to change, or did you feel that this was it? This was your experience and
Yeah.
you couldn't change it?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty young still, so I don't think I really didn't have it. Looking back, I really didn't know what was happening. I just was like, just in such reaction mode. I wasn't even like, I couldn't think that far ahead. Luckily, I think what saved me was just this pivot of like, okay, maybe perhaps you don't need to do the web design. Maybe you can be more of a project manager. And that actually was like just a few conversations with colleagues and with my husband, and then actually being mentored by a project manager and getting into this program was kind of like a life-changing situation. Then all of a sudden I had room to breathe, I had options, and I felt so much better. I felt it was just like this weight got lifted off and I could
Mm.
maybe have a different path, and it was not an easy pivot. It was very painful. I think my ego was wrapped in there a lot. I think I felt like I was a failure. I had all kinds of feelings. I think that was part of it too.
Mm. So, when you look back on that period of your life, do you see it in terms of, the panic attacks were trying to tell you, what was it, like a signal that you needed to listen to your body, and they were trying to tell you that something needed to change?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. Yeah, now I know better. Again, like this was a long time ago, so I was a very different person. But yeah, I think, um, one thing, what happens as you age is you know yourself so much better and you can take care of yourself better. So now I'm just like, yeah, I know exactly what was happening and I know what I need now and I can ask for help. And it's just, yeah, it's like I was a completely different person back then. It's like night and day. It's amazing.
So after that, did you, well, you started changing how you worked, you started moving
Yeah,
into project management. Um,
right.
what were some of the first changes you made?
Well, I started hiring out developers or other web designers to do the coding for me because I wouldn't be doing that because that's what was like, that was the long hours and what was like stressing me out and causing me physical pain. And I was having like some pretty intense tennis elbow I had to go to acupuncture for weeks on end just to get some relief. Yeah, so that was like the big hurdle to fix. And so I wasn't no longer doing all that. And I found that I actually enjoyed the client work more. I actually wanted to spend time with the client and work with them, but not necessarily execute on the implementation part. And I was so much happier. I was like, oh, there's joy in this. Wow, look at that. I can do this. And it's still a big part of my business. I'm still like running it, just in a different capacity.
Was it difficult for you initially to sort of let that work go, even though it was so exhausting for you? Was it difficult for you to let it go and let someone else do it, sort of manage someone else?
It was, yeah, I would think it wasn't so much difficult. It was just, I think I was just really nervous about doing it wrong. I think I'm one of those people
Yeah.
that like get so obsessed about like making a mistake, especially back then. I've gotten better about it now, but just I remember talking to people like, how do you manage people? What's the best way? And they're like, you just have to do it. And here's some guidelines. I'm like, oh man, oh really? This is painful. I don't want to just do it, but that's how it works. And then it just got easier and easier. And I did make mistakes, but I learned from them. And then you recover. It's fine. Life goes on.
Well, and it sounds like as you began to find the joy in working more with clients, that perhaps that was the beginning of your sort of coaching journey that you
It
then started.
was,
Yes, that's
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
You've spoken about finding community and support. What kind of support and community did you find, and why was that such an important shift, do you think?
Oh yeah, I think like back then, especially I started working at a co-working space, and I think because I was so isolating myself at home, it was, was it 2007, 2008, where, working from home was really weird. People just didn't really do it back then. And I think it wasn't very good for me at the moment. I was completely like, 12, 14 hours a day, 12 to 14 hours a day at home by myself. And so I started looking around, and I think my husband suggested, it's like, you go into this office and be with people. You need that. And so I found a really fun co-working space, and it kind of changed my life. I had people to hang out with. I went out to lunch. I found work there. I found projects. It was fun. It was so fun. I was like, that's really what I needed. So I think just changing your work environment and making it so that you run into people and you have that community that's built in some capacity, I think is really important.
Yeah, because I think it's very easy for us as introverts to stay away from people, to hide behind our computers, to stay at home because it's more comfortable, when actually we can get energized and motivated by being around other people. It's just learning how to take care of ourselves through that process, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. What do you think so through this experience, what do you think you discovered most about yourself during this kind of transition?
Um, that's a very good question. Well, I think you said it best, like, the panic attacks, the exhaustion, it was all warning me, it was all saying, this is not how you're supposed to live. And I just wasn't, I kept just pushing through, and that's not how it works. Like that's not how our brains are screaming at us, and you're just like, no, I still can make it work. And so I think I've learned to listen to my intuition, my body a lot more, excuse me, and just be aware of like when there's signs that things are not gelling or things are not moving smoothly, I should pause and question and journal and maybe talk to a friend and see, hey, what's going on? And I'm so much faster at catching that now, and questioning it, and I have a lot more support around me than I ever have before. So yeah, I think it's just being more aware and leaning into my own inner knowledge, which I was not at the time.
Mm. Yeah, it's quite a journey, isn't it, to get to that point where we actually listen to ourselves, because I think the conditioning is very much, no, you push through, you force things, if it's not happening for you, you just got to work harder and do more. And breaking free from that can be quite challenging. Okay, well, now you work very specifically with introverted entrepreneurs. What unique strengths do you think introverts bring to business?
Well, one of the top things I think is we're wonderful listeners. It's one of the things that was such a great skill set for me, especially when I was doing web design. I would meet with clients and a lot of times for the first session, I would just listen to them and just take notes and be like, okay, what's going on with your website, with your business? And I get really the details with what they're talking about. And then I would reflect that within the proposal. And they were just shocked that somebody actually like took what they said and listened and like worked with it versus like, I think a lot of times, and I'm not dissing web designers by any means, but I think a lot of times someone just has like a kind of like boilerplate thing that they just like, here's my package, take it or leave it, where I was willing to do custom work and work with them. And I think that really like surprised them. So I think listening is a huge skill set. And I think just also introverts tend to be more thoughtful and they might pause and not be so quick to jump to ideas, but that's an asset because sometimes we just need to like take it all in and think about it and just sit on things for a minute and not overreact and just kind of meditate and then get back to like, okay, here's a plan for things. So I think there's a couple of different strengths that introverts bring to the table. But yeah, I think listening's the big one.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I so often people want to tell you what you need, and honestly, as I've had that experience, I've had web designers work on my website in the past, and there was no question about what do you need, tell me about your business. It was, this is what you need. But honestly, I have to be honest here and say that I wanted someone to tell me what I needed because I didn't think I knew. So I think there's such great value in the introvert strength of listening and also being able to ask the right questions to bring out of people what they don't know they know, so that you have that information to be able to build the website or help in the way that they really need when they perhaps think they don't know what they need. Yeah. Why do you think so many introverted business owners, I think we feel a lot of pressure to operate in ways that don't fit who we are. Why do you think that is? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, I was just at a networking event yesterday, and I remember sitting there going, oh, man, why? These are hard. I just was almost like, kind of almost, there was a moment where I'm like, I think I just want to walk out the door and leave. This is just too much. And I think it's just being on, it's just that having to like kind of be on and like alert and just like in your face and just like, because that's kind of how I was just joking around last week, like I have all these marketing books and business books on my shelves over there, and they're all telling you to be loud and out there, and that does not feel right to me at all. Like I think that was one of the things I struggled with being a web designer, was just having to feel like I had to like be a loudspeaker and to get attention, to get the right clients, and it just felt so counterintuitive to everything in my brain and body, and just was so frustrating that to be told that over and over again. So I think that's one of the frustrations, is just even just where it starts with marketing yourself. Like, why can't I be a more quieter, thoughtful person? Why does that make me something that is not as desired? Like, why is the extrovert over there getting all the attention when I can maybe produce or like take something, approach things hold on a second, like approach it differently but have the same result, but doesn't necessarily have to attract that loud extroverted energy, you know what I mean? So
I do know what you mean. And I think, as introverts, people often feel because we're not saying anything, that doesn't mean we have anything to offer, when the opposite is really true. I remember one time a woman in a group that I was part of was introducing me to someone else, and she said, "Now, Linda doesn't say much, but when she does say something, you want to listen because it will be valuable." And I thought, wow, she really gets it, Yeah. And I think that is one of the values that introverts bring. Now, we're not talking all the time. We don't feel the need to talk all the time, but that doesn't mean there's nothing going on in there. I think it was who was it said? Was it Stephen Hawking or was it Einstein or somebody said that introverts have they don't speak a lot, but they have a lot going on inside, the loudest minds, I think he said. But yeah. So what do you think helps someone build a business that truly reflects who they are?
Well, I think it starts with knowing yourself, and going back to like what I was saying, like I remember I was saying I took all these assessments, but the assessments, I think you need to have someone. It's good to have someone kind of guide you through them. So I eventually I took assessments later on, and let's see, probably about 10 years ago, and I had some coaches work with me to kind of help me through them. And it's really nice when you have somebody to guide you and kind of be like, well, what do you think of this outcome? And I think once you have some insight like that, like I for example, I had a client, I think last year or 2 years ago, take the Enneagram, and she was having some challenges within herself. And she realized when she took the Enneagram, she realized, oh my gosh, there's this part of me that's like blocking my true self from being who I want to be. And like there was this kind of a pattern that she was doing, and she couldn't see it, but she kind of subconsciously knew about it. But once she like does the assessment and it explained it to her, she's had this aha moment. She's like, oh, I think I know how to work through it now. And it's not always that crystal clear for everyone, but I think the more you get to know yourself and the more you understand your habits and what your strengths are and maybe what your weaknesses are too, you can get support and help for those things. And then you can take it to the next level. And there's so much more support out there than ever for a lot of these different quirks that we have or different challenges. This is a great time to live to find that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we've got to understand ourselves and then build our business according to who we are, rather than who we think we should be. And you're right, self-assessments are so very valuable, but it's so helpful to have someone to help you interpret that. And okay, this information's about me is nice, but what does it mean for me in my daily life? How do I integrate this in a meaningful way? Yeah. So we talked about the importance of community, and I know because I've been that you have a networking group for introverts. Why do you think having community like that is so powerful for entrepreneurs and introverted entrepreneurs in particular?
Well, I mean, I selfishly have created this for myself too. So I want community. So that was one of the main reasons I created it. So I have vested interest in it. But however, I would say that it's nice to come to a group where you know that this is attracting like-minded people that have tendencies like yourself. So the meeting is very structured, and so one of the things that I find very exhausting and frustrating as a more introverted person going to networking events is just going to a room of people and just standing there and trying to figure out how to break into conversation. Like that is just, to this day, is still very hard and frustrating for me. And then just like, yeah, so I have a whole spiel about that, but I'll save that for later. So this is nice because as soon as you walk in the door, what you're going to be saying, what you're going to be talking about, the theme. I have questions to kick off conversations. I don't want it to be a waste of time for anyone either. I want it to be very thoughtful and well executed. And I think so far, I've been doing this since June, and it's been a pretty great turnout. And I think most, if not all, the meetings have been pretty successful because I have made it so structured and help people feel safe and that they can talk to each other. And I'm starting to see community happen. I'm starting to see people work on projects together, meet for coffee on their own, help support each other, become friends. It's really lovely.
Oh, that's great. I mean, it's so true. It's not that introverts don't want to be around people. It's just want to do it in the right way, in a way that's productive. We don't do small talk very well. We don't do very well walking into a room with a big group of people and, trying to introduce ourselves and things like that. So the idea of structure really does make it safer and make it a space where you feel that something meaningful is going to happen and that you can contribute to that. What do you think successful entrepreneurs most often overlook when it comes to building a business that supports their life rather than becoming their life?
Well, I'll speak for myself because I've like studied so many different other like wise people, gurus, business coaches, and they say, here's the way to do it. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'll try it their way. And you're like, wait a second, no, this doesn't work because it's not me. And so I think it's so easy to fall into these like kind of almost putting these very successful business folks out there, like almost as gods on pedestals, like they know the answers. But no, we can't do the same thing that they're doing because you're not the same person and you have different strengths and different talents. And so I think it's really important to be willing to experiment and try things that feel intuitive to you that may be, okay, I have a really good example of this. It may feel completely against the mainstream. So one of the things this was a huge experiment for me when I was in the web design business. I took this web designers boot camp, and there was not many things like this that existed out there at the time. It was like a Facebook ad I just caught. And I was like, all right, they're marketing to web designers. This is amazing. So, and one of the things that they talked about in this boot camp was how to get the biggest proposal ever. Like, and you kind of date a client. So you want to have like 6 meetings with a client before you even work with them and get to know what they need. Like maybe you build in video to your proposal, you build in SEO, maybe you bring in different contractors to do all this, whatever. And I'm just like, I tried doing it and I was like, this is exhausting. This feels really wrong to me. Everything felt wrong. And so I'm like, what if I just completely scratch this and do something totally different? What if I make it so I have my first meeting with a client is a paid session, but it's a low fee, but that way they get to know me, I get to know them, and then that fee will go towards the proposal. If they end up working with me, I can they get that money back, but then I get a really awesome opportunity to know, again, going back to listening, understand what their needs are and put this together in the proposal. So then it's like a low risk opportunity for the client, but then they get to know and trust me because they have that time with me. But as we all know, if it's free, people don't have any skin in the game. But if it's a little bit of money exchange, a little bit of value, then all of a sudden you care about it more. And so I started doing those, and I could not believe the success rate. It was amazing. And I think like 9 times out of 10, someone would hire me after a strategy session with them. And that's actually where the coaching started, because I started seeing people having more and more needs beyond the website. But that was something that I wouldn't have done on my own. I hadn't just done that boot camp and was just like, no, this is not working for me. I need to do something totally different.
Wow. Yeah, and that's such a beautiful thing to look at what you're being told to do and recognize that no, this doesn't feel right. It's not right for me. So let me try something different. And it takes courage to do that. What would you say to perhaps an entrepreneur who it seems like they're successful, on the outside, everything looks like they're successful, but they're feeling overwhelmed underneath? What would you tell them to do?
Well, I would help encourage them to find outlets where they can. I think what's really important is to find outlets where you can have kind of like Zen moments. Like for example, last night I did this really cool speed puzzling event, and what was so great about it is I was so focused on making this puzzle, I couldn't think about anything else. And I think it's really important to have detachment from your business where you just, because I think a lot of people, including myself, sometimes you work too many hours and you just end up being not very productive. And so you need to like actually break away and set some boundaries and have, a 1 day a week where you don't do anything. And I think it's just really important to like have more balance in your life. So, like again, find a way so you can kind of unplug, but also have more support, like journaling, or having like a business community, or even a accountability buddy, somebody where you're talking. Don't be isolated. I think that's also something I learned early on. That is something that can be very detrimental, because you need to have like a kind of a sounding board, someone to talk to that gets what you're trying to figure out. And that can be a while. It can be a while to find someone like that, but they're out there, and there's people very similar to you that want to talk through what they're dealing with too.
Mm. That's great advice. So this series is all about self-led leadership. When I say self-led leadership, at this point in your life, what does that mean for you, really, to lead yourself, do you think?
I think it's about, again, leading into my intuition a bit and knowing what I need, and tapping into my community and my resources, and being honest with myself if I do need more support, um, and being open to new ideas and changes. But again, I think it just depends, like, because there's so many different seasons in our business. So I think it's just recognizing where you're at and what kind of support you need. Because sometimes you need more than others. It kind of wavers. So yeah, I think that's my interpretation of it.
Yeah. And it's that awareness, isn't it, of yourself and what you need.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's really helpful. So before we wrap up, I'd just like if you could share how people can learn more about you, where they can connect with you.
hmm Yeah, I just my website, nedrarezinas.com, or I'm on LinkedIn a lot as well, so you can find me there.
Okay. Nedra, thank you so much for sharing your experience, both the challenges and the wisdom that's come from your experiences. And it's conversations like this that are exactly why I wanted to do this series, to explore what's really happening beneath the success and how we learn to listen to ourselves along the way and what it takes for us to do that. So thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with me. I know people are going to get a lot of value from it. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Linda.